How's it going, everyone? It's the Super Bowl boy, VenomousStare, bringing you the Super Bowl preview of the 2016 TWIF This Week in Fantasy series. If you don't know what this series is, basically, it's me taking a look at what's going on in the NFL, predicting how each player will do, and I do so looking at it through the lens of my fantasy football league. Now, this is particularly interesting this year because I'm in the Super Bowl, the finals, and each player, there's 12 players, has put in, it's either 20 or 25 bucks, I can't remember, and obviously the winner gets the majority of that, so this will be interesting. So let's talk about what happened last week. In the losers bracket, Aaron defeated Seagouch. Aaron, of course, had a pretty terrible season after talking about how great his team was over and over. And if we look at Aaron's team, we have to remember a few things. We have to remember he drafted Todd Gurley first overall. We have to remember he took Greg Olsen in the second round. We have to remember he took a kicker and a defense 6th and 7th round. And then, of course, even though after that draft he managed relatively well up until the point where he traded away a lot of running back power for next to nothing. And he ended the season 6-8, but he defeated C. Goucher here, who started Moncrief for whatever reason. Some would ask, would it have mattered? Not really. But I expect better out of C. Gouch. So Rampy wins. He'll be going on to face Weston. One Johnny Football Please, who of course was narrowly defeated in the final week of the season and didn't make the playoffs. So he's in the consolation bracket facing off against Clap for Bacon, who was making a surge late in the year, but if we look at his team, there's a lot of single digits on Clap for. Everyone but the quarterback was in single digits, so of course that pretty much means you're going to lose. LeGarrette Blount didn't even break 10, and if we look at Clap for's receivers, Dougie Baldwin not that great, Williams on San Diego, not that great. Remember, Phil Rivers is prone to turn the ball over 4 times in a game. Ertz is okay. T.Y. Hilton was pretty good, but he was playing Minnesota's defense, so Clap 4 eliminated out of the consolation bracket. And on the side of one Johnny Football, notice Antonio Brown and Mike Evans once again. Both of them did poorly. If you remember last week, one Johnny Football Please missed the playoffs because Antonio Brown and Mike Evans, the linchpin of his team, underperformed. Of course, that's the risk of relying on wide receivers and going for this boomer bust explosive receiver style. Once again, it didn't work, but everywhere else on his team, except for defense really, there was something relatively good going on. Kicker got him 12. He got a touchdown out of his tight end and flex, which is nice. Kelly, that Washington receiver that loves to run his mouth, got him double digits. Ingram, of course, isn't really very talented, and even when the Saints put up 48, he couldn't break double digits. And Kirk Cousins, of course, struggled profoundly on Monday Night Football versus Carolina, who actually looked okay for like the first time all year. So Weston takes that game despite Kirk Cousins, struggling against Carolina. So let's talk about the real playoffs, the people who are actually going to make some money this year. The division-winning fantasy genius versus the team that I said to watch out for when he was 0-2. So let's look at Ben's team. He had the best record in the regular season. He is known as a manager who is both active and aware, and a guy who's not afraid to make trades. DeMarco Murray was a guy that Ben acquired from Spencer, who I beat this week. That's the matchup we're going to preview next. He acquired DeMarco Murray from Spencer in the middle of the year. And if you look at Ben's team, Amari Cooper had an awful week versus San Diego. And even though Ryan Matthews did really well, Jay Ajayi, who was the Miami Dolphins running back, who a lot of people were dick riding, calling the next Ricky Williams after he had 4 consecutive good weeks with the bye week mixed in, really hasn't been very good. And even once Ryan Tannehill's gotten hurt, it seems as though the pass game has gotten a little better and Ajayi has gotten worse. So really bizarre turn there, because Ryan Tannehill almost blew his knee out. He had an ACL injury, and it's kind of bizarre that Ajayi would actually get worse. a truly good running back, you would think that they would step up and carry in that kind of situation. Personally, I think anyone who called him the next Ricky Williams after 4 weeks has shit for brains, but that's just my opinion. Notice that the UT graduate Justin Tucker managed to get Ben double digits. He's one of the best kickers in the league along with Dan Bailey. And if he continues his success, he will be one of the best kickers ever, right up there with David Akers. No Fried's team is scary. At the top, he has Russell My Jimmy's Wilson, who is a running quarterback. Those are the kind of players that always carry the threat of getting high yards, because if you don't know, rushing yards scale far better than passing yards. So Russell Wilson got 3 pass touchdowns this week. It wasn't really due to running yards, the fact that he got 20 points. Devote Freeman, I always forget how to say his first name. It's one of those idiotic first names that doesn't actually exist. Devonta Freeman with an A, like an effeminate A. Devonta Freeman. See, I always want to call him like Devote. It's kind of like a weird DeMarcus, but whatever. Freeman, 31 points. Okay, he's on a blistering Atlanta Falcons offense, and even though he kind of splits carries with Coleman a little bit, a lot of times when the Falcons put up big numbers, it's always him punching in a couple touchdowns. And in this case, he had 3, and the fumble didn't take it away, or the fumble didn't really take much away from his performance, rather. He still had 31. Zeke Elliott is one of the best players in the league. Going into this NFL season, I wasn't sure what to think about Dak Prescott, but Dak Prescott has proven to be an incredibly consistent and talented quarterback who is not only very good for his age, but someone who looks as though they've been in the league for multiple years. And despite the fact that the Cowboys have lost to the Giants, just look at how Dak Prescott controls the ball compared to Phillip Rivers or Eli Manning. Dak Prescott, even though he's a rookie, far better at controlling the ball and not turning it over. I actually saw that jokish co-host of Stephen A. Smith, not Skip Bayless, he's on a new show. It's a new guy called Max Kellerson, who's an unabashed Giants dick rider. He actually said, well, Eli throws so many touchdowns because he's not afraid to lose, okay? That was his excuse for Eli Manning leading the league in touchdowns in the last few years. I don't understand how guys like this get to be on the biggest sports shows on ESPN with Stephen A. Smith. Every segment he's in that involves the Giants, he's like, okay, I'm a Giants fan, but and then he just dick rides the Giants irrationally. He thinks that Eli Manning's some fucking miracle, and the only reason Eli Manning turns it over so much is because he's not afraid to lose. Plain and simple, the Giants have no run game. They have no offensive line. Their defense is kind of scary, and it matches up well stylistically against the Cowboys, but the fact that anyone thinks the Giants are this scary, playoff bound, bound to get into the round of 8, I don't really think that's the case. I think the Giants are kind of this flash-in-the-pan team who have gained all of their notorieties for 2 weird wins versus the Cowboys. And like I said, their defense matches up stylistically well against the Cowboys, but that Week 1 loss for the Cowboys was very odd, and I think that the Cowboys have improved a lot since then. And I think, honestly, the Giants, if they do make the playoffs, should just pray to God that whoever, obviously the Cowboys are going to have a bye, but the Giants should really pray to get the Cowboys again, because they stylistically match up well against them, and for the Cowboys that should be their biggest fear, along with Tom Brady and the New England Patriots in the potential Super Bowl. So going back to this league, Ben, his team looked really good in the beginning, but at the end of the day, at the end of the year, he puts up 99 in the first round of the playoffs, and that's pretty respectable. That usually can get you the W in a lot of cases, but he played No Fried Rice for You, who of course started off 0-2, and the guy that I predicted people should watch out for, and sure enough, he got a droopy 134. And just to remember, guys, last week No Fried got obliterated by me. It wasn't even close, 115 to 53. Oh, why is he bringing this up? Because we're playing in the Super Bowl. It's worth pointing out, especially because of how recent it is. So let's talk about the Cousin Bowl, one of the biggest rivalries, Spencer versus me. Now, if you're not aware of Spencer's team and his style, he likes to draft extremely running back focused. He's often been quoted as saying that you don't need to draft wide receivers because you can just pick up wide receivers off the waiver wire. And if you just look at this, we'll scroll down. Spencer had some trouble here. So what happened this game? Because if we look at Spencer's running back core, it's lethal. He has Shady McCoy, who's been extremely good and put up almost 30. Fourth in the league, has done a relatively good job staying healthy. He has David Johnson, probably the undisputed best fantasy football player, most valuable player to own there is. And he had, on it, if we just look at his bench, he had Matt Forte, who of course had an injury to deal with, but it's worth pointing out he had him on his bench. He also had Adrian Peterson, who Spencer traded away DeMarco Murray, the Tennessee Titans stud, to get Adrian Peterson. After Adrian Peterson, it was public that he had a meniscus injury, which if you know anything about meniscus injuries, it's always 4 to 6 weeks, but very often it runs longer than 6 weeks. And if the team is bad or doesn't need the player and they don't need to rush him back, they rest him longer, because the meniscus is a serious injury and rarely is it one where I think people come back early from and perform well. And Adrian Peterson had a known moderate to severe meniscus injury, and Spencer got him. And I really don't think Spencer expected that much out of Adrian Peterson, but it's worth pointing out that at the end of the day, Spencer gave away DeMarco Murray, a guy ranked top 5, for Adrian Peterson. And if you don't know, this week, the final week of the season, where Spencer's going to be playing for the number 3 spot, the third place match, Adrian Peterson's ruled out. Okay, so even if Spencer traded for him thinking, maybe I can throw a Hail Mary last week of the season, didn't even work out. So all in all, that Adrian Peterson DeMarco Murray trade is going to go down in history as one of the worst. This is almost as bad as the 2008 Brandon Jacobs Cameron Watson trade. That bad. Cameron, of course, being Bing Bong 2 Boogaloo. So if we look at Spencer's team, he likes to draft running back focused, and his running backs did exceptional. His top 2 guys got him a droopy 50, and Cam Newton, who he traded for, had a good day. But if we look at wide receivers, the position he claimed could be filled with the waiver wire, Sammy Watkins, a notoriously jokish and inconsistent receiver that I always shit on, 1 point. What do you know? Injury issues. Crowder managed to do next to nothing versus Carolina. Now this was peculiar because Carolina kind of played like they played last year for the first time all season, minus like a couple moments. But Jordan Reed has been laughably inconsistent, and to compound this issue, he threw a sucker punch in the third quarter of the Monday Night Football game and got ejected after he had already done nothing and contributed nothing to his team. And Farrow, the guy that Spencer infamously said would do way better than Powell, and some dipshit on Reddit said that it was ludicrous to suggest that Powell would do better, even though Matt Forte had an injury going in, and Bilal Powell has had some explosive weeks in the past. But yeah, that was just ridiculous according to the Reddit army. And Farrow did garbage. What do you expect at San Diego? When you have Phil Rivers leading the charge, you can't really expect much. But, 3.3. Spencer was expecting this guy to get double digits, I think. So, 3.3 is really horrific. Hopkins got 9 versus Carolina. Now, he did miss a PAT, and he's been missing some field goals lately. But at the end of the day, he hit the field goals when it mattered, and Washington's offense stalled out in the red zone. Bryant managed to get Spencer 13, which was more than his defense, tight end, flex, and wide receiver 1 and 2, which I think is funny because whenever we preview matchups, Spencer always dismisses the kicker. But Matt Bryant's very good. He plays on an explosive offense and got him 13. And then the Cardinals defense, the main part of the DeMarco Murray trade, what Spencer really wanted to trade for, ended up getting him 7. Which is okay, but that was dwarfed by the Miami defense that got me 21, which played against the New York Jets. Bilal Powell, of course, played against the weak Miami defense and got 16. Tyler Effort did next to nothing and got hurt. piece of garbage he's been. Gabriel, the Atlanta receiver, has been doing very well because Julio Jones has been gone. He's pretty much been getting a touchdown almost every week. I expect him to still get some targets this week, even though Julio Jones is back. And Jordy Nelson, of course, did what Jordy Nelson does. And Lamar Miller did what he does, which is get about 100 yards total and a touchdown. So, despite the fact Derek Carr did poorly, I was able to beat Spencer in the Cousin Bowl. This is interesting. He defeated me in the regular season of this year, so he's going to the third place match, and we're going to review the third place match right now. Here it is. This is a great third place match. Probably going to be the better game than No Fried versus me, I would say. Because both of these teams were division winners. I was a division winner too, but it was very close. No Fried was a wild card, which is kind of interesting. But let's jump right in. Matty Ice playing Carolina, a recently surging Carolina, mind you. How do I think Carolina will do? Well, I think they'll do better than they did at the beginning of the year, but I think Matty Ice will still do relatively well for Ben. He's playing against Cam Newton, so a great mirror matchup here. This is great for both Ben. I mean, this is great for anyone who's interested in the league and watching these videos. Carolina and Atlanta will be an interesting game regardless because of how Carolina is surging and seeming to get some of their own talent back, and Atlanta is obviously a pretty solid team. So the fact that it is a mirror match of quarterbacks, which of course is a significant position of these two division-winning teams, will be a fun. That factor alone will make it a fun match to watch in real life. It is a noon game, by the way. I'm a little under the weather, by the way, that's why I'm sniffling. So, I give the edge to Matty Ice there. The Carolina Panthers have two very young corners. They're not to be trusted. Edge Matty Ice. DeMarco Murray playing atrocious Jacksonville. LaShawn McCoy playing atrocious Miami. I love this matchup. Poetic. Spencer has to play against DeMarco Murray, the guy he infamously traded. And if we look at those fucking numbers. Oh my goodness. My lord. He's only dipped below double digits once. That zero's a bye. Oddly enough against Chicago. DeMarco Murray is going to run all over Jacksonville. Tennessee needs to win. I don't think that Jacksonville has any defense at all to oppose DeMarco Murray. And I think almost the same thing about LaShawn McCoy. Now, just to preview my matchup a little, I'm relying heavily on Miami this week. And LaShawn McCoy's playing Miami. LaShawn McCoy's going to have a good week, guys. Just like last week, he's playing a shitty defense. I know Spencer likes to look ahead, even into the playoffs and during the regular season, like week 6 and 7. Spencer's looking at the schedule and trying to match up good running backs and good any position except receivers, Kappa, in the later playoff weeks. So look at this. Spencer has a good matchup, but then he has a bad matchup here. David Johnson is playing in Seattle. Seattle's one of those teams where they play way better at home, especially the defense. And the fantasy genius has Jay Ajayi. So this is, I love this. I love that Spencer and Ben are playing each other because, first of all, they're two of the best, most active owners. And furthermore, there's a lot of drama and backstory because of the trade going into this matchup. I know Spencer has been outspoken, just like me, against not really believing in Jay Ajayi. Not buying into the hype like some at least. And I think that even though David Johnson has the worst matchup, I think he's going to do better. I think Jay Ajayi is kind of being phased out of the offense, oddly enough, even though he was the star of the offense. It's almost as though the Dolphins are performing how they should have been performing with Ryan Tannehill without him. Deshaun Jackson is playing Chicago's defense, and Golden Tate's playing Dallas' defense. Now, Dallas' defense isn't that good, and Dallas needs to win, but I expect Golden Tate to have a pretty good week here. I'm going to edge Tate. Sammy Joke Watkins, he's questionable. He's fully expected to play. Interesting, okay. I'm still going to edge Amari Cooper playing Indy, believe it or not. Kyle Rudolph is a guy who manages to get a relatively high amount of points. He's ranked 6th, and if you look, he's snagged in a relatively high amount of touchdowns this year, and has been one of the only people to do anything on the Minnesota offense. Going to edge him over Reed, who likes to throw sucker punches and get ejected with 0.6 points. Ryan Matthews is already locked in 6. That's not very good. Kevin Farrow, the infamous 3.3 no-namer, Kappa, is playing Cleveland. Surely he's going to beat 6.2, right? I'm going to just say Kevin Farrow here, guys. I mean, if Kevin Farrow doesn't beat 6.2 and Spencer loses, that'll just be like, I mean, time to end it all for Spencer. Jesus. Matt Bryant's playing Carolina. I expect Atlanta to score a lot of points. I'm going to edge Matt Bryant here playing in Carolina. Notice Tucker is extremely talented, but he's playing in Pittsburgh, Heinz Field. That's a tough place to kick, especially in the winter. And as we get later in the season, the kickers have to play in tougher conditions. I'm going to edge Matty Bryant playing in beautiful, beautiful Carolina. Cardinals are playing in Seattle, and the Eagles have already locked in a droopy 13. They shit all over Eli Pussy Willem Manning. Going to edge the Eagles here, guys. And this is an interesting matchup, so who do I think is going to win? I'm going to edge to Ben here because of his edge on tight end and receiver, but I think it will be a close game. And despite the Super Bowl being this week, this is the game you're going to want to watch. So let's talk about the loser bracket. Here we have Rampy, who likes to brag about his team against Weston. So will Weston's Mike Evans, Antonio Brown combo break 10 points? Or I guess what, like 12 points? We'll see. Rampy has Queefernick, Mr. Kneeler, playing against the terrible Rams. That's pretty funny because he has a terrible Rams running back. Edge Queefernick. This is funny because Rampy basically invested a lot of his team in the basic star players of two god-awful teams that can't score touchdowns, but they're playing each other and the defenses both suck, so he's actually going to do pretty well. Kirk Cousins is playing Chicago. They're not very good, but I'm going to edge Kaepernick here because Kaepernick surely can at least run the damn ball a little bit. Come on. Mark Ingram's garbage, and he's playing Tampa Bay. They're looking to get a playoff spot. I'm edging, let's see. Let me double check here. I don't expect either player to do well. Hello? I don't expect either player to do well. But, that being said, I guess I have to edge to Spencer Ware because Mark Ingram's a total joke. Todd Gurley's playing San Francisco's awful defense. Edge Gurley. Kelly likes to talk. How about you win? How about you don't lose over and over? Garbage. Matthews facing Jacksonville versus Antonio Brown. If Antonio Brown ever needed to have a good week, it was this week. Pittsburgh has lost so many games this year. Advantage Brown. Mike Evans is playing terrible NOLA defense. Advantage Evans. Brait, the guy that went to Harvard, facing NOLA defense. But Greggy Olsen is basically the only Panther to catch anything except for old Ted Ginn. Advantage Olsen. Terrence West eats shit for money, and Hill is really not that good either. I'm not even going to bother rating that. Gostkowski, playing the Jets. Who do you think's going to win that one? Advantage Gostkowski. The Bengals are facing off against the Texans, and the Broncos are facing off against Kansas City. I'm going to say Bengals there because Houston has that guy, Dick Savage Wood, starting. So advantage Bengals. Advantage Weston here. Honestly, even though Aaron has these two players going for him, Weston pretty much has the rest of the board, and I think Mike Evans will surely have a good week versus New Orleans. Potentially even a multiple touchdown week. Advantage Weston, and he will come away with the consolation bracket, I predict. Here we have old C. Goucher facing off against Clapfor. He has Ben Raplesberger starting, who didn't even bother practicing, LOL. Winston's playing NOLA defense, he'll obliterate them. Blunt's playing the Jets defense, he'll obliterate them. But Bell cannot be underestimated, and Bell I think will actually outscore Blunt. Both will do very well. Latavius Murray is playing bad Indy, but Howard for Chicago has been very good actually, top 10 this year. I'm going to edge Howard actually. He's been low-key someone who's been pretty damn good and really has saved Seagouch from scoring bottom 4 in the league this year. Adams has also been very good, so maybe you want to claim luck or do you want to give credit to Seagouch? I'll give credit to Seagouch. Seagouch has picked these two lesser-known dark horse guys to help anchor his team when really he relies a lot on his stealer 1-2 punch. As usual, Seagouch likes to play these high-risk styles. Doug Baldwin is facing Arizona, but I think Adams, even though he's playing Minnesota, will get more points. Williams is playing Cleveland, give me a break, advantage him. Henry will surely be able to break Zach Ertz, 33 yards. Let's look at Zach Ertz. He's ranked 11th. Broken double digits a couple times. He's caught 2 touchdowns all year, Zach Ertz. Pretty much the epitome of a Philadelphia Eagle this season. T.Y. Hilton should do pretty well versus Oakland's defense. I'll edge him because Kansas City's defense is pretty good. Santos versus Prater. Prater, of course, is playing Dallas. Detroit, they're probably going to score more than I think Kansas City and Denver will be pretty low scoring. I'll edge Prater. Packers are playing Minnesota defense. Adrian Peterson's still out. Minnesota's pretty shitty. Advantage Packers. They're surging looking for a playoff spot. The Packers are. The Ravens are playing Pittsburgh. They'll probably do pretty well too. Let's see. All in all, I guess I'd have to edge old Seagoucher here. And whenever you lose the first round of the consolation bracket but win the follow-up match, it's kind of like saying, okay, I was middle of the pack. And Seagouch can walk away this season knowing he was middle of the pack if he wins. If not, he barely made the playoffs, nudged Weston out. Whatever. So here we move on to the Super Bowl, and things are not looking good for me despite me beating Spencer last week. Perhaps Derek Carr will finally have a good week. He's shit in my mouth the past 2 weeks. Look at this garbage. 5! I'm this many. Yeah, Herman Cain, 555 tax plan. That's what Derek Carr did versus Kansas City. And he also did poorly versus San Diego. How about you do well versus Indy? They're pretty shitty, Derek. He's facing off against Tom Brady. Oh my god, I have to face Tom Brady in the freaking playoffs. And he's playing the Jets. The jokes. He's going to stomp all over them. I might lose off of Brady alone. Advantage Brady. Lamar Miller's questionable. Houston needs to win. I'm going to guess he'll play. The injury info says he'll probably play. But I have 3 running backs who I could potentially start. They all play at noon. Lamar Miller plays at 7:30. That's a joke. Devote Freeman, probably going to smash Carolina. Their defense hasn't been very good. Luke Kuechly's had concussion problems. Not a whole lot going on in Carolina, even though they've been surging recently. So I'm going to have to give him the edge over someone who's questionable. Carlos Hyde, please, for the love of God, turn in a 20-point week. We can see he did that to lead things off. Hasn't been very consistent since. He's had a few good games, but overall, he's ranked 13th. Okay, well. Lamar Miller, by the way, is ranked 12th, so I have 2 mid-tier dudes. He's playing LA, though. Carlos Hyde surely going to break into double digits. But Zeke Elliott desperately wants to break Eric Dickerson's rookie rushing record. He's going to steamroll Detroit. So, right out the gate, No Fried has a huge advantage right off the top. Basically, the only chance I have of winning this game is for Derek Carr to perform as well or better than Tom Brady. Jordy Nelson versus Mike Wallace. Wallace, really not that great. Nelson's one of the best, but he's playing Minnesota. Nelson comes up big when it matters. I'm giving Nelson the edge. Even though Julio Jones is coming back, I think Tyler Gabriel will still probably get double digits. Brandon Cooks has been one of Breeze's best targets. I give Cooks the edge. Sims, oh my god. So if you don't know why I have Sims tied into Miami, He's done pretty well the last few weeks. Tyler Eidfert, he'll be gone for 5 weeks at the beginning of the season and ended up missing like 7 or 8. Got hurt again. He's already been ruled out. Garbage. So I had to pick up Sims, and I'm also starting Landry, who's been excelling with the backup quarterback and has touchdowns recently. By touchdowns, I mean 1. He has 100-yard games, though, not touchdowns, sorry. But my other options here, Kelvin Benjamin's been horrific. I could do a running back if I wanted to. Beasley, really not that good unless you play in a PPR league. Forte's coming back, so Powell, and he's more healthy. Matt Forte half-assed and hurt is completely different than Matt Forte actually coming back, so that's why I hesitate to start Powell this week. No Fried also has Dion Lewis he can plug into. How good has Dion Lewis been? Broken 10 once, but he was gone for the majority of the beginning of the year, remember? So obviously Jimmy Graham gets the edge over Sims there. Sims is just a plug and play, and Brandon Cooks gets the advantage over Gabriel. Landry, how does he match up against Derrick Henry? Well, Henry's been decent, but maybe Landry can get more than 100. I don't really expect Landry to outscore whoever No Fried can flex, though. I mean, he has Fitzgerald he can go to, so I give the edge to No Fried. Hopkins is playing Chicago. They're not very good. And Washington desperately needs to win to try to make it into the playoffs. So I edge Hopkins. Well, actually, no. Graham Gano's playing Atlanta. And the Panthers, it's tricky because they've been inconsistent, but I'll edge Gano there. And the Giants have already done horrifically badly. You know, the Giants actually ranked pretty well this year. 5th. They're playing the Eagles, who have the worst record in the NFC East. And the Giants, they just couldn't do anything. I guess that's what happens when your quarterback throws 63 times and can't keep your defense off the field. Advantage Seahawks, they're playing at home. And if we look at No Fried's team across the board, he has huge advantages. So No Fried definitely has the edge for the Super Bowl. So if you enjoyed this, like, comment, favorite, what have you, subscribe.